Hey mamas, this is Playfully Faithful Parenting, and I'm your host, Joy Wendling. I'm a seminary grad and children's and family minister turned stay-at-home mom to my 5 girls. Spiritual parenting is my calling, and it's my passion to help other mamas disciple their kids using the power of play and their own authentic daily walk with Christ. If you're a mama who wants to introduce your kids to Jesus and watch as the Holy Spirit transforms their lives, this is the place for you. I'm so glad you're here. So let's dive in and see how we can partner with God today. Hey mamas, and welcome to Playfully Faithful Parenting. I'm your host Joy, and I'm so excited you're here today. We have had a couple of interviews over the past few weeks that have just been so full of great stuff. And next week, I am so excited to bring you an interview with Christine Sign. We talked yesterday, and it was such a rich conversation. And I think you're just going to love the insight and the freedom and creativity that she wants us as Christians and as Christian moms to embrace. And so she wrote a book called The Gift of Wonder, and I just finished it just a couple of hours before the interview. I started a few months ago. It's really hard for me to read paperback books. I love audiobooks and I listen to those all the time. It just takes me a lot longer to read through a paperback or hardback, like a real book with text on a page. It just takes a lot longer with 5 kids or even with 1 kid or any kind of busy life, right? So that is coming next week, and it is going to be amazing. If you want to look her up ahead of time, her blog is godspacelight.blog, I believe. I will post the link in the show notes if you want to look her up early. And she will talk about this next week, but she has a online retreat coming on November 20th. It's 3 hours long in the morning. And I'm going to be there, and I'm really looking forward to just preparing my heart for Advent in some wonderfully creative ways. And I just love the way she sees kids. She has such a beautifully deep view of children and what we can learn from them theologically, and such a fun, out of the box way to think about spiritual disciplines. And it just totally matches my heart for what I want to share and encourage with you here on this podcast. And so it was such an honor to have her, and I can't wait to share that with you next week. Today, I wanted to share with you the 8 play personalities that Dr. Stuart Brown has defined. So he is one of my favorite researchers on play, and I'm sure I've talked about him before. He wrote a great book on play that was kind of one of the my launching off points of understanding the power of play in adults as well as kids. Like, I understood how great play was for kids before I read his book, but I didn't realize how deeply influential and critical it is for our lives as adults. And so I will link in the show notes to his book, but it was such an amazing book. And I will say it is not a Christian book. I read in an article that he kind of grew up in a Christian, I think it was Catholic home, and it was not a life-giving experience for him. And So it's not a faith that he has right now. But I don't think that just because someone is not a Christian doesn't mean that we cannot learn from their research. He is a medical doctor. He is a psychiatrist, I believe, some kind of psychology, psychiatry, as well as a doctor before that. And so he has lots of great research that is not negated by the fact that he does not have a heart for Christ. And so I think that one of the things that we as Christians can do is we can look at things with a God perspective, even if that's not the way they're introduced or provided to us. And I was listening to an episode of the Connected Families podcast yesterday. It was a 2-part episode. Are we hardwired for connection? I'll also link that in the show notes. Such a great 2 episodes. And I love the way that Jim and Lynn talk about science and faith and the Bible. And they talk about the Bible as our North Star and using that, and everything goes through God's word, but that we then use science to get practical tips for what the Bible tells us. So if we know that children are to be in a connected, loving relationship with their parents, we know that from Scripture, and we see the way Jesus has created us. God has created us for connection and for relationships, and how that is modeled in the Trinity. So if that is a truth from the Bible, then we can use science and brain research and child development research to learn more about what the Bible has already taught us. The Bible has taught us the basic truth of that, and science can provide us with tips on how best to do that, and how, like, the specifics of the ways the brain works and our kids work through those connected relationships and through play. And it just helps explain all the details in the that of the way God has created us, and all those little minor things. I mean, it is so amazing the way God has created our brains and the ways that we get to reflect Him and His personality and His character traits. And science just proves that time after time. And there is a lot about science that may not always line up with the verbiage that scientists use, but I think God's truth, like, it covers it all, right? And we can use science to support the things that are in the Bible and the things that God has revealed to us through nature. And so science, I really just see as a study of what God has done and is doing. And I have a big enough understanding of who God is and His power, and a small enough view of my own perfection, or like getting it all right, like I know that that's not always going to be the case. I'm not always going to be right. I'm not always going to understand everything. And so when I combine those two, I feel like it gives me the space to be able to change some of the verbiage that scientists might use, where they would say evolution has caused, children's brains to develop better in a connected relationship. I can say, no, God created that, because scientists don't know everything, right? And so I think we can hold science with an open hand and trust that God is God over science, and God is God over the whole world and the intricacies that scientists are discovering about what God has created. So anyhow, this episode, I just love their explanation of using science and the Bible from that connected families thing. So, anyhow, long story to get to these play personalities. So, Dr. Stuart Brown is not going to say God designed us in these 8 play personalities, but I am, because I think he has done the research on the play personalities, and I know the truth of who God is, and that he designed us and created us as diverse people, all reflecting parts of him. And so, yeah. So let's talk about what are these 8 play personalities. And you have a play personality. You might have multiple, and your kids also have play personalities. And so when we're going to look at these play personalities, you need to be thinking about, what is your play personality? What are your kids' play personalities? And how can we find ways to make sure all of these types of play get incorporated into our lives? Maybe not daily, but on a regular, consistent basis, so that each person's play bucket, if you will, is filled, right? And so, but think about this in terms of your own play personality and for your kids. So the first play personality is the Joker. And this is like the class clown. They're just fun. They're silly. They love being goofy and maybe really crazy. And this can see, you can see like from a very young age. And this is like my husband's main play personality. And so they are going to just really be okay being foolish, doing practical jokes, always making light of things, and that's their play personality. So finding ways to embrace and encourage that in either yourself or your kids can be really helpful. So the next one is the Kinesthete. And so this is all about movement. You love to move your body during play. Athletes, dancers, people who are filled, refilled, refreshed by running, swimming, walking, all those kinds of things. And it's not necessarily about winning or losing a game, but just that movement and using your body. So it could be, you could go jumping on the trampoline with your kids. You could swing, bike rides, go for walks. These are types of movements that refresh someone's play bucket. The next is explorer. And this is my number one play personality. I have 3-ish. And so 2 main ones and then a little bit of a third that are my favorites. So the explorer is for someone who really loves to explore new places, or it could be exploring new ideas by reading, meeting new people, very relational. They could be emotional by, exploring types of music and art and stories or poems, just like exploring the world. And so you could go for scavenger hunts or take your kids to museums if this is their kind of play personality. And you might, with your kids, see it by the types of pretend play they do, but also the types of books that they like to read. My daughter is loving nonfiction, like history and biography books right now. So this is, I think, one of her play personalities. She's loving to explore history through other people's stories. Then is the competitor. And so this is going to be similar to the kinesthete, but it's someone who really just wants to win. So they're playing games with the object of winning. And so this could be one-on-one. It could be part of a group. It could be like a competitive dancer or someone who just loves the thrill of competition. So for this person, it's going to be key to help them learn how to win and lose with grace, right? But they would love board games or family game nights, playing video games together, having games together in the backyard, all those kinds of things would be great for a kid. But we just, for them, want to help them learn healthy competition and winning well and losing well, right? So that we can continue to build connections through the competition. The next play personality that God has created is the director. And this is my oldest main play style, I think. This is planning, organizing, orchestrating different types of events and games, and they have a very strong leadership skill. They might like to plan movies for, or plays for the siblings in the family. Yesterday, my daughter planned a whole funeral for her fish. Her fish died this week, and she planned a funeral, and there was a time for crying and a time for more crying and a time for games and prayers, and it was all listed in an agenda, and she set it up. She spent all day planning it and told us what we had to wear, and all of that was a playful way for her to work through the grieving of her fish, Dottie. And I think that's just a beautiful way for her to use the gifts and the personality that God gave her to deal with that loss. And play is so good for kids and all of us when we're grieving, but especially for kids. And so that was just a way for her to use her play personality subconsciously. I mean, she didn't say, "Oh, I'm a director, so I'm going to do to work through it." It was just, that's what came naturally. That's the way God created her. And we saw this when she was as young as 2. She got an award, at her preschool when she was 2, they would give out future career awards, and she was given the future wedding planner because she was so creative, but also that leadership role of planning and organizing events. So that's the director. Next is the collector. So you might have a kid who loves to collect stuffed animals or Hatchimals, Barbies, any of those kinds of things, Legos. Maybe you collect mugs or bookmarks or Bibles or whatever. Like collecting it's just a really easy play personality to name and to identify, right? So we see this in kids and adults, and that can be a really fun way to engage and connect with your kids, is by if they are a collector or if you are a collector, working on that together. Next is the artist creator. And so a couple of episodes ago, I talked about how we are all creative because we are designed in God's image. And that's something that a lot of us lose as we grow up. But it is still in all of us. However, I think it definitely brings some people more joy than others. And so this is one of my other play personalities, and it is just, doesn't necessarily mean you're super talented at art or those different kinds of crafty skills. It just means that it brings you joy, and it's refreshing, and it fills your heart in a way and lets you delight in the world that God has created. And so this may not just be art, but it could also be construction, designing, architecture. Those kinds of things are all part of the artist creator play personality. And I just love the way that particular one reflects God. I think all of them reflect God in different ways, but I think just for me, God as creator is one of my favorite things about him. And because it's just so easy for me to look outside and see, and look at people and see, and easy way for me to connect with him personally, because I see the delight that I have in creating, and knowing that he feels that way about me when he created me, or when he looks at me as his creation, or any of my kids, or, the world. So I just think that is a special play personality. And this could be, building box forts and building towers with blocks. Legos, again, could fall in this one. And so it's just, this is a really great one. And I think it's one that we all need to try, even if it's not our number one play personality. And finally, the last one is the storyteller. And I can look at this play personality and so easily see Jesus. Jesus loved to tell stories. Think of all the parables that he told. And he was just so talented at storytelling. I think it's such a beautiful gift. And there are so many pastors with this gift and this play personality. And I just love to just kind of listen to these people who are so gifted at storytelling. And this one is just really based on imagination, and they love people with this play personality love to read, write, maybe draw cartoons, watch movies, make movies, but they could also be the artist creator, but it is more of a purpose of sharing a story rather than just the creation itself. And so that is the storyteller. And I just love, I think storytelling, and it's just one that I'm really blessed by with other people. It's not my particular play personality, but I just, I am in awe of those who can tell a great story and easily connect things with stories. And so that is the 8th and final play personality that I wanted to share with you. These are all from Dr. Stuart Brown. I did not create them. And, but I love them. And I think that there's so much depth, and it's so helpful to know what our own is so that, we can fill that need in us, and to know what our kids are, and to find ways to involve all of those in our weeks and our play. So, mamas, thank you for being here this week. Again, come back next week where I'm going to share my interview with Christine Sign. So good. But for today, on behalf of God, thank you for loving and playing with His kids. We'll see you soon. Bye. Well, mamas, that's it for today. Thanks for joining me on Playfully Faithful Parenting. I'd love to keep the conversation going over on the socials. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. If you felt encouraged or equipped by today's show, do me a favor and leave a review. I can't wait to hear your story. Till next week, keep playing and pointing those littles to Christ.